We're going to be making the half square triangles for the Starry Picnic Quilt. And the Starry Picnic Quilt is right here. And these half square triangles are going to make the points for the large stars that are found in the quilt. And today we're going to talk about how to make those half square triangles 4 at a time. We are going to be making 4 at a time half square triangles. So we are going to take two 6.5-inch squares. We are going to place them right sides together and line up our corners and the edges. And then I'm just going to pin once in the center just to hold it in place while I get to my sewing machine. At my sewing machine, I am going to sew around the outside edges of this block with a 1/4-inch seam. I'm going to start in the center of one side, and when I get to the end, I'm not going to just sew all the way off and then start over. I'm going to use the guide on my sewing machine to backstitch a stitch or two, and then turn the corner and backstitch a stitch or two, and then keep going around the block. We are going to press these half square triangles open. So if we sew off of the fabric square, you'd have a few stitches that you'd need to unpick when you go to press these open. If you're not going to press them open for another quilt or another project, you could just sew off the edge. Once we have it like this, we are going to turn it into 4 by cutting it on the diagonals. So we're going to line our ruler up from corner to corner, or you can mark it with a hair marker and cut it with a scissors. There is room to trim in these to make them their final size, so your cut doesn't have to be precise. But I'm going to use the rotary cutter. And then you cut from the other 2 corners along the other diagonal. And that will give you 4 half square triangles. Then I would take these to my sewing machine and I would set the seam and press them open. So here's one of my finished half square triangle blocks. I've pressed the seam open and it's ready to trim, and I'm going to be trimming it to a 4x4-inch square. So to trim a half square triangle, you line up this diagonal seam with the 45-degree mark on your cutting mat. And then you just want to make sure that all of the edges are within that 4x4 area. And then it doesn't matter if it's perfectly centered or not. If it's a little bit off, it's okay. As long as your seam is lined up with that 45, it's going to trim to be even. All right, and that's it. There's one trimmed half square triangle. If you have any questions as you work on this week, don't hesitate to email or reach out or check back to your written pattern.